Hi, I'm Ryan,
Hey, I'm Nate.
Hello, I'm Steve.
and today on Dungeon Vets Book Talk, we're going to be talking about one of the most beloved book series for, I think, all of us, the Powder Mage Trilogy, or the first Powder Mage Trilogy by Brian McClellan. This is a Flintlock Fantasy book, and I believe it was definitely my first intro to this genre of fantasy, the subgenre of fantasy, and I 100% fell in love with it. And it is from cover to cover, it's a wild ride. And on that note, let's get into it. What did you guys think of it? And wait, I should say that this is not any of our first time reading it.
Nope, this is probably like my third time reading it. You were the one, Ryan, who suggested it to me in the first place, and it was also my first Flintlock Fantasy kind of fantasy.
Same and same.
My first, my first Flintlock Fantasy book or setting at all, and I went in pretty skeptical. I mean, I was into like the Napoleonic era warfare stuff like that at the time, historically speaking, and so I was like, okay, yeah, I don't know about mixing fantasy with my muskets, but
Same.
oh man, so enjoyable.
And then same. It's
Yeah.
so crazy. We had the exact same experience.
Yeah, this is one of those series that I think is just so genres that are criminally underwritten. There's not too many Flintlock fantasies out there.
I hadn't even heard of it. I didn't know it was a thing until you were like, you ever heard of Flintlock Fantasy? You ever heard of the Powder Mage? I'm like, nope. Sounds dumb. Oh, wait, it's amazing.
Indeed it is.
So as far as a rating goes, I'm also kind of taking into context the other books in this same trilogy, but at the same time, overall, I'd give it a 4.5 out of 5.
All right, what about you, Steve?
I also am going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. I loved it. I was totally enraptured the first time I read it, and it's been a very enjoyable read every time I've read it since, which has been multiple times. It was, my first introduction to Flintlock Fantasy, and I have also fallen in love with it since. But I knock it a little bit, I guess, just off of perfect, because it does feel a little like breakneck at times. Like it is a great, fun, wild ride, but it is like riding a wheelchair down some stairs. It is nonstop, and you have to be on top of your game. But it is very fun.
It is, and I think that's really fitting for the setting, in that it's, we'll get into it more later, but the setting is that it's a country that just underwent a huge revolution. So yeah, things are going to be fast, crazy, chaotic. Then you mix in some gods and some magic.
Good justification. 4.6.
So it's probably no surprise that I'm also going to rate it like a 4.5. And I know that I tend to like rate everything a 4 or a 4.5. But this seriously is one of my favorite book series ever. And everybody who have recommended it to, who has read it, has come back to me with nothing but amazing things to say. It's a wild ride. It's guns, gods, and magic, all in one book series. And we'll talk about some of the pacing comments that Steve had later on. But what was I going to say?
I think you were going to say that it's... Damn it, I messed that up. I think you were going to say
I think what Steve was going to say is what he thinks Ryan was going to say.
Oh, you didn't have something ready?
No, I didn't.
See, it's harder than it looks.
I just wanted to be included.
This bit's over.
All right, but I did have something I wanted to say, and it was the fact that I wrote a book that's also Flintlock Fantasy, and Powder Mage was a heavy, wonderful inspiration. So, Way of Renegades.
Plug it.
Yeah. If you want to explore the Flintlock Fantasy genre, go for Powder Mage and Way of Renegades.
Those are the two.
No, there's more. There's a lot more. But this book series also heavily influenced the campaign we ran. The last campaign I ran was a Flintlock Fantasy in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. But before we get going, You should definitely read this series if you haven't already. We're going to be talking spoilers as we always do. If that you're cool with that kind of thing, continue on and you will still love the books. There's no way that we could possibly go over enough in this hour or so that we have to ruin or cheapen your experience with the Powder Mage trilogy. And we're going to do all 3 books anyway, so you might as well. But back to Dungeons and Dragons. The magic system in Powder Mage is pretty different from Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. But that didn't stop you guys from trying to make characters within the Flintlock Fantasy realm.
There's a decent few homebrew versions of it out there. I think I tried to I wanted to run with one at first, but we looked into it and was like, no, don't know if it's really going to work in this setting and so on and so forth. But I definitely I had just come off of reading that series and was totally throwing all the inspiration from that into my character, which became one of my favorite and I think best characters.
Yeah, I think it's a top 3 character for sure.
Ulrich is absolutely in the Character Hall of Fame.
Human fighter, everybody.
Human fighters for the win. And forever.
My boys.
And we're specifically talking about the Powder Mage magic system. But the series of Powder Mage and the book, have we said the book name, Promise of Blood?
Yes, A Promise of Blood.
Oh, yeah, book 1.
We didn't read the whole series. We just read the first book, Promise of Blood. But I think the Arcane Archer was kind of built with the Powder Mage in mind, it seems like, because you can manipulate your bullets, or your ammunition, I should say. It says it's for an archer, right? But
yeah, I think there's some there even might be some restrictions written in the class about stuff like that, about using bows and things.
Bah.
But who cares?
Yeah.
That was what I first looked into when I was like, okay, I'm not going to do this Powder Mage homebrew thing. It's a little too much. How do I make a Powder Mage? Arcane Archer was the first one that came to mind for me. And I think the only reason I didn't end up using Arcane Archer is because I don't feel like their abilities scale very well.
They don't, no. It's a little disappointing at higher levels.
And they don't even get to use them that much when they level up.
For some reason, Battle Masters get 4 superiority dice, but Arcane Archers only get 2 of their shots. It's
forever.
Crazy. Yeah, until or they get a 3rd one at some super high level. But Bo could be a sorcerer or a wizard, however you want to flavor it in your campaign. Adamat is a inquisitor, investigator, inspector,
inquisitive rogue.
So he's an inquisitive rogue with a keen mind plus feat.
Yeah, that's his knack. His knack is that he's got a keen mind. Yeah, man, I feel like this is the point in the video where I should say that Brian McClellan has made the Powder Mage role-playing game.
Yeah, we should mention that.
It is a tabletop role-playing game that you can buy from his website, brianmcclellan.com. It looks pretty amazing. And when you're making your character, you can choose to be a privileged, a marked, or a knacked. And there's actually a list of knacks in the book.
Can't be a warden, huh?
Well, the cover of the book is them fighting a warden.
Wardens aren't born, they are made.
Wardens are in the monster manual.
Yeah, the Powder Mage monster manual.
But okay, classes. That's what we were talking about. Adamant, Powder Mages. Here's a hard one. Cop-Hole.
Yeah, I was just about to bring her up.
Because I thought about it. I even have a note here. It's like, what freaking class could you make?
I think that you could make her a warlock or wizard, I guess.
This would be like an enchantment wizard, right?
Yeah. It is.
She uses voodoo. Basically, she is a new type of sorcerer that's not like a privileged, that's not like a marked. She is from a different continent altogether, and their magic is just different. That's explored in super detail in the second Powder Mage Trilogy in books 4, 5, and 6.
That's like the real 4th type of magical practitioner we didn't really mention because we don't really get into it in this book. We see it. We don't. Yeah, and we don't get how it works.
No, yeah. But it is a lot like voodoo, or like old sympathy magic, where you're making figures of human beings and
Monets.
stabbing them with needles, and then they get stabbed in the chest in real life and stuff like that.
Kvothe wishes he could do that.
Yeah, oh yeah, she is way beyond Kvothe's league. And you could homebrew something, or you could just be very selective and flavorful with your spell choices. And a huge part of Copole and the difference between her and other characters is she has to do a lot of prep work. She has a component pack, not even a pouch. She like carries things around in a big old backpack, and she has to for her stuff to work.
She likes to collect random little things, random objects. I'll just be like, I could probably use this later.
Like a total D&D player.
Yeah. My thought was like maybe leaning towards like doesn't even have to be specifically, but like a great old one warlock. Doesn't even really need to be that, but stuff that's kind of affecting the mind. Because I was thinking like, she does a little bit of kind of mind control kind of stuff, making people jump off of cliffs and things like that. They're kind of like psychic things that make people
That's
think.
where I like enchantment wizard, and maybe you can even take like once you're at 9th level, you can take like telekinesis or something.
Yeah.
And you can flavor that as you're convincing people to walk off cliffs instead of you just, tossing them off a cliff. Something like that. So we have lots of riflemen and soldiers in this world, including very own powder mages. Yeah. And then Steve, when your first character died, you came out with your second character in this campaign, who was also inspired separately by the Powder Mage trilogy. And I remember when I was DMing this, and you were talking to me, it's like, yeah, I kind of want to make this thing like a bit like a Powder Mage, and I'm like, oh yeah, like 6 months ago I had this exact conversation with Sig. But you guys went in different routes. You actually did go Arcane Archer, but you also took levels in Artificer, I believe.
Yes, so Edwell took 3 levels of that, and so it kind of helped supplant the lack of stuff at higher levels.
I was going to say, did it help play into the Powder Mage aspect, or do you think that the Arcane Archer?
Oh, no, it absolutely did, because I chose Artillerist. And through infusions and stuff like that, you can get a repeating musket gun where you don't have to reload, and you can flavor that as just like, oh, I'm Tamas, I don't have to load, I can just shoot bullets out of the air or something.
Yeah, you can still expend ammo and just shoot it out that way.
Don't worry, I got it. I got how to make it. You need a little bit of Arcane Archer, a little bit of Artificer with the Artillerist, and then a little bit of Barbarian so you can get the Powder Trance.
I knew it.
And boom, you got a Powder Mage.
I knew you were going to go into that. Yeah, that's pretty complicated.
It's pretty mad in D&D, yeah.
Just a little bit.
Well, in any case,
there's a pretty varied sense of magic here that is pretty translatable into D&D, especially the privileged.
Yeah, to give you guys some context, in this world there are 4-ish levels of magical practitioners. There are those who are called the privileged. They are born with the ability to touch the else, the weave of magic, whatever you want to call it. And in order to do this, they touch it with their fingers, literally. They use their hands to cast, which
I'll say if there's one thing that kind of took me out of this series is when he describes the privileged using their magic. He talks about them throwing their hands up above their heads and then like working their little, finger gestures to manipulate the else. And I'm just like, I can't imagine someone doing this in the battlefield, just throwing up and doing some jazz hands.
that's how they do it.
And that's the most scary thing you could see on a battlefield. It would have been totally fine if he didn't specifically keep mentioning they put them above their heads. Why? Why do they do that?
So they don't accidentally blast themselves. It's way out of the danger zone. But that is by far the most terrifying thing you can find on a battlefield. They can rip entire armies apart. They're extremely valuable, and they are privileged in every sense of the word.
And the things that they can do it's vast. Like it is well within the scope of the spells that you're going to find within D&D.
Yeah.
As such, these practitioners, these privileged, hold heavy places in society. They're well above your average person. But the next type of magical practitioner is a Nact.
Nact are maybe not so magical practitioners, but they do have this, supernatural ability of some sort. And I believe they all only have one. Like one of the characters does not have to sleep. One of them can't forget. Like he can remember like anything. Both of which I think you can find as essentially feats in Dungeons and Dragons, which I think is kind of what Nact are, folks with feats.
And the third type of magical practitioner, that is the focus, I guess, of this series, are the Marked. They're also called the Powder Mages. They are a group of people who have this magical affinity to gunpowder. They're able to sense it from a distance. They're able to ignite it with just a thought. And they're also able to use the explosive power. But the coolest thing that they can do...
Are you going to say they can consume it?
Yes.
Okay. They can consume it in order to put themselves in they call it a powder trance, which is this state in which basically all of their physical abilities are greatly enhanced.
And how do you most of these powder mages consume it?
But that leads me into another sort of question I had about the mechanics of this system is, what is it specifically about gunpowder that sort of lets them do this stuff? So it's
not explained.
Saltpeter and sulfur. It's not explained, but I want, like, if they take saltpeter, will they be just saltpeter? Will they be like, will they get a little buzz or anything?
Nope.
No, you have to combine these two things, these ingredients together in a very specific way. Yep. In order for the properties to take effect. And they do mention, like, gunpowder isn't this magical substance that they're mining or finding. They talk about saltpeter being produced and traded. So I always wondered about that.
But if a powder mage, if they really need to get into that trance fast, what you'll see them do is just make a line of it and snort it right up their nose. And then, bam, it is just like taking a drug, and you are now just way better at everything that you could have done before. It's you get some crazy freaking moments in these books. Like,
all right, so here let's get into it then. Tamis throws a military coup, kills all of the royal sorcerers, and now has to lead a nation. So do you start this campaign with Tamis and his council, running the country just after the coup? Or do you start it with the executions? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, we didn't. He also executes pretty much the entire nobility, which was a lot of people. He has a big event and basically lets everyone get all their frustrations out by watching a bunch of people get executed at the
He gives them a promise. A promise of blood.
A promise of blood. I like the idea that we start directly after. It could be the executions. It could be, the coup is done. Here you are. But I really like this idea of throwing players into a setting where they have to deal with the ramifications of this.
So we should say there's definitely multiple campaigns going on in this book. But do you think the Tamis campaign, where you just conducted a coup, do you think that would benefit from like a Lord of the Rings style prologue that brings you all the way up from the coup to chopping off all the heads, French Revolution style?
I feel like you definitely have to do something like a prequel one-shot, short campaign, or just a lot of session 0 or even before that. A lot of stuff before session 1 I think would have to happen if you want to do that effectively. But I do like that idea of you starting off just dropped into this very chaotic situation.
Yes. So we talked about it in Lord of the Rings that you get to create characters and have this awesome epic one-shot centered around this battle at Mount Doom. And it's just to lay the groundwork for history of the real campaign that takes place later. So in this instance, maybe you have them play powder mages that are, busting in and killing sorcerers. Maybe you have them play sorcerers who are trying to stay alive, and the idea is that they're always going to fail or something, just to, really throw a heart-wrenching twist in there. But yeah, I use it as an opportunity to get them involved in making the history. And this way, later, when it's just like, hey, we're cutting off heads and now we have to do all this, you're like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah, you're invested in the why, and it's not just you're listening to your DM monologue about his hatred for the for just nobility.
Yeah, you won't be like, I don't care. Give that guy land, give that guy land, give her some land. Who cares? Let's get to the combat. Instead, you're going to be really thinking about the dynamics of how you need to keep this country together.
And what I think is important for something like this is you're getting thrown in it, but you don't have absolute control over the country, really. I mean, you have several different factions vying for their own kind of selfish reasons. Like Tamas's co-conspirators, they all expect something out of it. They were all promised things in return for support of his coup. You have the populace and the criminal organizations within them. All sorts of different factions in here that would be exerting their own forces and influences.
Yeah.
I almost think that the campaigns that take place in this book all use Tamas as this overarching NPC, the one who conducted the coup, the Field Marshal Tamas. And you have his son who goes and does his thing. You have this inspector who goes and tries to find Tamas's traitor in Tamas's court. And then do you think like another campaign could be Olim and Sabin and Vlora perhaps, who basically do these specific missions that he asks? So you have 2 missions with a direct purpose, and then you have this third campaign that is do whatever Tamas says.
I think you could run a different kind of campaign that is more focused on political intrigue. If you had, Tamas as a PC, maybe surrounded by other PCs, or kind of split Tamas into 4 PCs. Like, you're all co-conspirators that played some part in bringing this coup about, and now you're all handling the results.
I just got this amazing idea.
Go on.
So think about, imagine that, what does Tamas have? He has like 8 or 9 co-conspirators.
We have Proprietor,
Ricard Tumbler,
Prime Lector,
Charlemagne,
the Reeve, Charlemagne, Wenceslav, Prime Lector.
He already said Prime Lector.
I didn't.
Well, still okay, I know, but you still have the same number of fingers as me.
Yes. This one was Prime Lector.
No, it was this one.
So I had to put it. No, it's this one.
Wiggling your fingers like you're privileged. Before you blow up your recording studios. Okay.
I think that's all. So
Tamas
6.
has 6 co-conspirators, and then Tamas himself. That's 7 people that are in his court that are making all the decisions in this nation. What if the players are all probably part of Taniel's campaign or Adamat's campaign, but what if each of the players picks one of the Tamas's co-conspirators to just play off time? Like, you're making Ricard Tumblar's decisions, you're making Lady Wenceslav's decisions, and then they have to figure out who the traitor is, of course, and each player is responsible for the big time decisions of each of one of Tamas's that would be kind of fun. If you're playing like a regional or a city-based campaign, I would love to have my own PC and this bigwig that I also have control over, like maybe in between the sessions,
I like that idea a lot, especially if you have the kind of players and a DM who like to do stuff on their off time, who want more D&D than that one weekly session or however often you run it.
Like the DM shoots you a text and says, multiple choice, what do you do in this scenario? And something as simple as that can make huge changes considering the power that each person on Tamas's council has.
I'm trying to determine if that's a good way for a DM to be lazy by having players do a lot of work, or if that's going to just be a lot more work on a DM. I think it could go either way. But
So let me ask you this then. How does this mesh with the mystery angle of Tamas trying to figure out who the traitor is?
So that's right. So one of the key characters of this book is the Inspector Adamat character. He is this retired police figure whose job is he is hired by Tamas to figure out I've got a mole in my court. Well, actually, first he figures out a riddle. But after figuring out the riddle, he goes, I have a mole in my court. Find it. If there are only 4 or 5 players at a table, then you still have 1 or 2 of Tamus's co-conspirators that are still left to be the mystery. Or maybe one of the players knows who it is because it's them.
That's what I was getting at. Which
You
could
ever
be
play Murder Mystery?
Yeah, which could be interesting. But then they're also coming back around on, with the Taniel campaign, and they're invested in trying to save stuff. And okay, I like this. Tamas is probably an NPC, but the events that he goes through, you can put his council through.
Right.
If you have a table that isn't really into that whole political intrigue kind of game, things like that, or trying to run things, Tamas could easily just be an NPC that they work for or against, But if they are into that political intrigue stuff, I think I really like that idea Ryan proposed of them kind of running the different co-conspirators. So I guess he still would be an NPC there.
Yeah, and then they can make decisions as the counselors and then go through all these various events as Taniel and Adamat and Kapol and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
In that case, we have Inspector Adamat. This is a mystery-based campaign. If you're taking this as a direct inspiration, you can take a lot of cool stuff from a city-based campaign. This is all taking place within the city of Adapest, in the country of Adro. And the country is basically this city and then some like rural area and then a big sea, all within a big circular valley. It's really self-contained.
It's like Vermont.
Yeah, it's like Vermont, but industrialized all the way.
Yeah, interestingly so. And I love the bits of tech in this. I mean, obviously it's Flintlock Fantasy, so we're already doing that, but throw a bit of tech in your campaigns every now and then. Be anachronistic. I think it provides a lot of opportunity for some fun stuff. Even some of the themes I feel like we find, like Adamat's character, I almost find anachronistic feeling based even on the setting he's in, because he's almost like this old retired beat cop who's doing private eye stuff now, which doesn't even fit in this like Flintlock era setting, but I love it.
Yeah, and like this is totally takes place in like the Victorian era London where everything is gray because of all of the industry. The port smells just awful all times of the day. The Ad Sea, which is like the sea that Adapest is on.
Yeah, everything's in Adro.
Don't go swimming in the Ad Sea. You might get some lead poisoning or something. But in any case, Adamat's campaign takes place within this awesome, big industrial city rife with gangs.
Ad gangs.
The ad gangs. The various allies of Adamas, and
Adamas. Adamat.
Oh, no. But yeah, what are the obstacles that Adamat has to deal with, and what would the party as Adamat's character? So like, who is the party? Adamat the Inspector is one of the players. His bodyguard Sue Smith,
yeah,
who is a bare knuckle brawler, one of Adamat's old friends. Who else would you say is in that crew?
I mean, those are kind of the two.
Yeah.
So what would you make then?
As far as like main POVs from the Adamat story. But I feel like you could easily throw a couple more people in.
Yeah, a couple more Adamat's friends, or maybe Tamas assigns one of his best soldiers to be, traveling around with Adamat, or maybe even a Powder Mage.
Even a marked. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have 3 or 4 folks in this, I guess 2 to 4 folks running this Adamat campaign. What are his primary obstacles as he goes through his objectives?
For his first objective, the goal itself is like pretty open-ended. Kind of find out what this means, solve this riddle. And so you're I feel like that's a great starter thing to get someone out in a city going to various places.
Yeah,
like,
just go and look.
You're going to have to check.
Oh, you went to a library? Well, the pages are ripped out. Too bad. And when they go to a library and they don't get what they want, they still have the opportunity to get world building stuff, because you don't want to leave them completely empty-handed, so the chances are you might get something. And if you get nothing at all, you still get the opportunity to then go somewhere else in the city and experience something else, which is cool.
I mean, I would even like the pages being ripped out. That's a clue in and of itself.
Agreed. Yeah, if they're smart inspectors.
Well, remember, this is D&D, so we have to downgrade the complexity of the mystery to second grade.
Well, the pages are ripped out. He ends up going to speak to the last living member of the Royal Sorcery Cabal.
Yeah, the one who wasn't there.
Who was not there, and it's Taniel Two-Shot's best friend, Borobudur.
Good old Bo.
Or known as Bo, yes. But Adamat inevitably finds out the answer to this riddle by going up to the, South Pike Mountain at the fortress there and meeting up with this sorcerer and learning it there.
This would be like, Adamat goes through a couple different combat encounters, but this would be an opportunity for one. If you're going to drag your player characters all the way up to this mountain to hopefully get a final answer, you got to throw something at them there.
Cave lion.
Yeah. Yeah, cave lions.
Like cave lions.
All over the mountains these days, cave lions. But eventually he comes back to Tamis and was like, hey, I figured out the riddle. I wouldn't worry about it that much. And then Tamis is like, great. Now find out who the dang mole in my court is. And now you have to go and investigate each one of Tamis's co-conspirators.
Who are now like the ruling council of...
Yeah, and I think that's the fun part of the campaign.
Yeah, and so I think that Adamat and Sue Smith could be having their own campaign of solving this mystery, and those players are doing multiple campaigns. One of them is with Taniel and Kapol and Bo and Julene and the Mage Breaker and stuff like that, but then they're also making citywide decisions as part of Tamas's council.
Yeah, that's less a campaign and more an addition.
Right. No, I shouldn't say two different campaigns, but there are two different campaigns between Adamat and Taniel's group.
Totally.
Yeah,
I
okay.
will say, though,
I don't believe they ever talk.
Yeah, not in book
one. I think you could squish those together. If you're really determined to make this into a D&D campaign, I think you could squish those together.
Yeah, you could.
You can have Taniel and Kapol running with Adamat. And then they discover, they solve the mystery, and they got to be like, all right, we have to go to the last privilege. And then it's like, oh, shit, that's my old buddy, but Tamis wants me to kill him. And then they go, oh, shit, he's got this Gaius. Oh, shit, the Kez are attacking. We got to handle that. And then we'll go back and do the traitor stuff. And, you're taking things and switching them around at different spots, but I think you could do it.
This is actually a really good point, because I think Adamat is underneath the university when Julene and Rosalia have their big battle that decimates it. And so they could all just be trying to solve the mystery from Tamas and find this random privileged.
Yeah, that all works out really well.
They can do both at the same time, then go to South Pike all at the same time, and Adamat just comes back and Taniel and Kapo stay there. Kind of beginning phase 2.
In which case we have Taniel, Kapo, Adamat, and Sue Smith. Pretty good bunch of people. We have a fighter, a wizardish type person, an inquisitive rogue, and another fighter. That's a great party.
Yeah.
So they go out, and we'll probably let's just skip straight to the finding the rogue privileged. It turns out that she's a super privileged, not just a normal privilege that you can just put a bullet in. This privilege is capable of bringing down entire buildings, raiding hellfire, and all this other stuff. And where do you track her down to? An extremely crowded university.
And what do you call those folks, those extremely powerful, privileged?
Pretty.
Y'all listen to it. I never have. So I don't know how things are technically supposed to be. I think I said something like pretty or something.
That's what I said when I read it.
I'm not fond of the actual pronunciation. I prefer what you just said, but, he made his choices.
Pretty.
By the way, Christian Rotzka did a great job, the narrator for the audiobook. I loved it.
Yes, Tamas's voice in the audiobook is one of my favorite voices of all time.
Did you notice all of the little, laughs that he brought into Adamat's character? All the little chuckles that text.
I never would have thought of him as being a chuckly sort of fellow.
Adamant's very good-natured, yeah, in the audiobook. He just seems like he wants to live a good, happy life, and he just keeps getting tugged away. Damn it.
It really adds a lot to his character. Anyway.
But yeah,
Rosalia.
big boss fight.
Yeah. You're in the middle of a super duper crowded university. And first things first, we got to get all these people out of here. And it's up to somebody to make a persuasion roll to talk to the guy who's like, we're about to have a big fight here, and we're about to bring a bunch of guns into here. You need to evacuate everyone. The guy responds with, how do you expect me to do that? You respond with a persuasion roll.
What is he? He's like, free lunch in the courtyard or something like that?
He goes, free lunch! Free! He starts shouting, free lunch. And then at that, all the students are like, that's good enough to get me out.
I would go.
And they,
yeah,
I would go.
Total
too.
college students.
That could just be the roll you make, a deception roll for convincing someone there's free lunch.
Well, in any case, it does work. And they cue this boss fight. So, how do you counter this super powerful privileged? You bring in a mage breaker.
Mage breaker.
He's going to help turn the tide against this privilege. What's a mage breaker, you ask? A mage breaker is a privileged who has cut off their ability to cast like a normal privileged and has turned their power of magic into nullification. And they can now nullify magic within a proximity of themselves.
Inside out privileged.
Yeah. They're like a privileged twisted inside out. And so that's the goal, right? In this boss fight, that's your win condition, is getting the mage breaker close enough to the pretty so that you can just blast her with everything you got once her magic is nullified. And the party does exactly that.
So the DM, where Julene is clearly an NPC, because of also future things that she's going to do. But the Mage Breaker is also an NPC, right? Okay, so then the DM creates this combat encounter, and he watches the party come up with this plan to get their human grenade to somehow throw him at Rosalia and be like, haha, now you're nullified. And he's just like, yeah, great. This is my most D&D moment. I'm calling it right now because I didn't think of this before, but as I'm thinking about it now, holy crap. And then, while all this is going on, the DM is playing Julene and just throwing level 6 fireballs out, lightning bolts, and like, this crazy magic, and through Rosalia. And then the plan is successful. They throw the Mage Breaker on top of Rosalia, and the DM goes, but I can actually kill this Mage Breaker.
Immediately melts him.
And the party is left going, but you told us that it was a Mage Breaker.
No, you said no, because in the
yeah, the party has no idea. And in the book, Daniel has no idea. He's like, that's not supposed to be possible.
He doesn't even know he's hunting a pretty.
Yeah, he doesn't even know. And so the fact that you can just throw this loop on your party and be like, well, actually, no, there are supremely more powerful beings out there. So this combat ends with them defeating Rosalia, however. Because in the book, she just says, we're cool. I'm leaving. Like, let's just call it a quits. Let's just stop fighting. But I'm leaving. But that counts as a victory in D&D, right?
Yeah, totally. And Rosalia leaves Daniel with, some info, I believe.
Yeah.
Cryptic,
total D&D victory type moment. And now the party is left going, what's going on here?
This NPC was really, really gunning for her. What's going on with them, I wonder?
And this feeds us into going to South Pike. That would be like the end of an arc then.
Yeah, that'd be the end of the arc. Got a good boss fight out of it. You got to report back to Pops, Tamis.
And now the DM then gives the party the task of killing one of the party's childhood friends.
Yeah, the Tamis wants the party to go up to South Pike Mountain and kill privileged Borbador, the last surviving member of the Adran Cabal. Just so happens to be one of the players, Daniel's best friend in the whole wide world.
See, that to me That arc is kind of my most D&D moment. That's totally the DM being like, all right, this arc is going to be about something from this character's backstory. We're going to go delve into that.
Sure.
And he's had his knife on like the text of that person's backstory for months now. It's highlighted in red.
Alternately, we have a new player at the table. This is how we're introducing their character.
Yeah. I love ornate character introductions. Critical Role is the best at them, obviously, because they have just the best production value and stuff, and they're all great actors. But the concept of going out of your way to then be like, all right, and hey, do you want to come and introduce your character and tell us what they look like and stuff, I think is so cool, and I appreciate it so much when DMs do that. Because it really gets me invested and excited about this new person at the table, as opposed to just being like, all right, you guys wake up. At the very beginning of the session, you'd be like, you guys wake up and there's somebody in the living room waiting for you or something, like we've all done it because we've had to out of necessity, right? So I like to think of it as that second one, is that we are just introducing Bo to the party because, of course, Taniel can't go through with it. It's his best friend.
All right, and that brings us to the first combat encounter of this arc. They got Bo right where they want him. I'm like, all right, just got to take the shot, and that ends it. Turns out Taniel can't do it, just like you said, and he goes to be like, I just can't do it. Starts going to walk up to Bo to go and embrace his best buddy and be like, hey, surprise, I'm here on the mountain. When he gets attacked by Julene, the person who the party was working with before to take down that Pretty, turns out she's a Pretty.
This DM, man.
Not just Julene. Cave lion
She's
Julene.
wild shaped.
Oh, yeah.
Into a cave lion. Maintains all of her mental faculties and everything. And this isn't like a CR2 lion or something. This is a big buffed mythic lion. And I believe she can also cast to a limited amount while she's in her lion form. That's a hell of a boss fight.
Oh, absolutely.
And on top of a snowy mountain where everything's difficult terrain.
And you probably had to have some type of environment stuff getting to this fight beforehand.
Oh, you're tired. Maybe you got a level of exhaustion.
Yeah, you might have some features lost.
The objective now is, can you stop Julene from killing the brand new player at the table?
I'm also always in favor of having more than one enemy in fights. Just because I've talked about it before, the action economy of 5e, single blah, blah, blah. You can have legendary actions, or at first it seems like, 3 cave lions are attacking, but, oh shit, one of those ain't just your everyday cave lion. It's a pretty cave lion.
It's a Matt Mercer boss, where it's got 6 times the amount of health, which isn't a bad way of doing things, especially if you have a big party.
No, if you really just want to have one enemy, as a big boss, you're gonna have to give them more health, and I'd throw in some like legendary actions, layer actions, or like you mentioned, like some environmental stuff, like the stuff she's casting should shift some some snow or rocks could fall or things like that.
Absolutely, part of good encounter design.
And they're on a cliff, so there's good high stakes. You can't get too far over there because they eventually in the book win the combat encounter by throwing her over the edge.
After Kapol sets her on fire, Taniel shoots and stabs her, I think, and then finally they throw her off of a cliff.
By the way, Kapol scrambles her brain, gets the moment of her, sticks a needle through the brain, and just starts wriggling her hand all inside the brain, and I can't feel very good because I'm pretty sure that kills just anyone else she does it to.
Yeah, spoiler alert, she ain't dead.
But they do throw her off the cliff. She shouts screaming, and everyone reading was like, oh, well, that was totally an off-screen death, which means it wasn't a death.
The DM will be back.
She will be back, and she will have friends. The next objective is now to defend South Pike Mountain alongside the Mountain Watch against a massive army coming from the neighboring country of Kez, who has come to take over Adro once and for all.
Yeah, a long time, if not enemies, then at least there's a lot of animosity between the two.
Yeah,
nations.
rivals, antagonists, maybe. And this is directly from the DM just stirring shit up yet again because he's the one playing Tamas. He's the one who started a war and who did the coup and everything.
Yeah, a lot of talk of a coming war with Kez, and here it is.
I like and this might be some of the pacing issues you had, right? Is that everything is happening, these huge events are happening one after the other, after the other, after the other, right when the party or the characters in the book are in position to have to deal with the consequences.
You know what that kind of pacing is really great for? A little game called Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, so now you have this siege, but it's not just any siege. The enemy is waves and waves of bad guys charging uphill out a mountain, but they all have rifles and everything. And you're the mountain watch. But in addition to all that, they have wardens. And so who wants to talk a little bit about wardens?
Wardens are people that have been manipulated by sorcery into these big, hulking, humanoid versions of themselves that are much faster, much stronger. They can endure far more punishment than a normal human can. And they're used as shock troops and
they're disgustingly big
bodyguards for the privileged because they're pretty good at killing powder mages, which was their original intent in their creation, I believe.
Yeah, these people are big and strong, just abominations of people that could just rip your arm off with ease, you know?
I've always imagined them kind of looking like some illustrations of Mr. Hyde that I've seen. You know, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because they wear
the
hats. And
yes.
they'll wear like
a bowler hat.
Totally.
A bowler hat or a stovepipe hat and a coat and stuff, but they're like huge, hulked out things.
When the warden tries to assassinate Tamas, he like takes his coat off and his hat off and he puts it on the coat rack.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. We've talked about sieges before. This is a long, protracted siege-like battle. I believe it takes place over months, in fact. But the difference between this and others is the guns being used. So, like, Ryan, what was your experience when you dealt with big battles as a DM and everybody has a gun?
Well, DMing the Flintlock campaign, I decided to make the boneheaded choice of homebrewing my own gun rules. This is probably something I'll write about in a blog at some point. But I decided to not use the D&D official weapons as guns or for the gun rules. And that had a lot of adverse effects on the big battles, I would say.
Big battles can be difficult, and when you add guns into, like, one of the things that we ran into with your campaign a couple of different times was players trying to abstain from using firearms. And one character in particular was a monk, and so he said, no, I want to run 50 feet and punch them with my fist.
Yeah.
But the gun has a range of 90 feet, and it quickly turned into a lesson about why the world transitioned away from martial weapons and towards guns and firearms. And if your party or if your players are not ready or they're not prepared for this type of technological shift to take place in your campaign, then that's something you need to consider, because when you try to play the game well as you can, it's hard to ignore the fact that a gun is a much better weapon oftentimes than not.
So to I think my system's credit is that I made guns powerful and able to one-shot a commoner with a 1d12, a whopping 1d12 shot, plus your modifiers. So you could easily kill a commoner with that. What this system did bring is very, if you ever played XCOM style gameplay, everybody has a ranged weapon. And everybody knows that everyone has a ranged weapon. You could be a sword-wielding guy, and that's your specialty, but you still have a sidearm pistol that you can shoot as a bonus action. So you definitely need to test out a little bit of the gameplay before you get into it. And you're talking about Valen, this monk we had at our table. And he was like, I'm not going to do the whole gun thing. I don't want it. That's like the fantasy I want to do. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. Yeah, don't do the whole gun thing. Stick to the magic side of the monk. Or the fist side of the monk. I remember
Rest in peace, Valen.
I remember rest in pieces. I remember specifically saying that this guy has a blunderbuss, and then Valen's like, "Okay, got it. Charge the guy with the blunderbuss," and he tanks like an AOE gun blast all to himself at like 5 feet range, and I'm like, "Well, that's the end of Valen."
Yeah, we were at level 3 or 4 at that point.
Yeah.
We were pretty low level at the time as well, and
So guns are strong at the lower levels,
Very strong.
and then
we also had
they
the.
kind of taper off a bit.
I don't know if you want to mention it, but we also had the execution rule.
Oh yeah, that was probably the single biggest mistake of my DMing
Oh,
career.
really?
Well, maybe.
I mean, that's ultimately.
Do you think there's a bigger one?
I don't-
Since we're on camera.
I didn't think it was that terrible, but I mean, Valen might disagree.
Or core.
Or core.
Yeah, no. The execution rule, for reference, was the rule that if you put a gun to someone's head and pulled it, it was an instant kill. It was an instant kill headshot, and I regrettably killed a player character that way by using hold person on him and then walking up to him, putting the gun up to his forehead and pulling the trigger. And that was after a dozen times of you guys using the rule in different ways.
I was gonna say though, like that sounds like very abusable, but I didn't feel like we really abused it.
Oh yeah, you guys did it when you were like, kill people while they were sleeping, or you'd sneak up behind them, stuff like that.
Yes, we definitely did some sleeping people, I remember.
Yeah.
We did them in. You know what I mean?
We did 'em.
Yeah. Interesting rule.
So yeah, and it makes big battles.
I don't think I even answered the initial question you were asking.
No,
We
it's
just
fine.
Got into this tangent.
It's fine. Like things are happening, and the fact that everybody has the ability to hit from all over the field and to hit hard changes how you play combat. And you know, it's a lot of classic gunfire stuff. You know, you got to like lay down fire, and then you got to move up, and you still have to close with the enemy.
Lots of diving.
Yeah. Using
Lots of,
cover.
going prone to impose disadvantage against shooters.
Yeah, we don't necessarily get into the real sort of like Napoleonic warfare tactics or that, era until the next book. This is more of because they're defending a wall,
Yeah, there's stuff you could do, and I think there's not a whole lot to talk about. I think in this scenario, other than there being a tunnel that the Kez are trying to dig, and
I mean, the book, already gives you something great for your party to take care of that is a more specific, focused, small-scale part of this giant battle going on.
That's perfect, yeah.
But a great chance to demonstrate, like, this is what large-scale warfare looks like in this world with this level of technology.
I guess to wrap up the this arc of the campaign, the party realizes that this is all a ruse and this is all a distraction from what's really happening, is that Julene is trying to bring back a god.
This is the information that Taniel got from Rosalia at the end of that big battle in the university, is that she will summon Kresimir. And, wait, that was Adamat, wasn't it?
You tell Bo that once you say Bo.
We were
Bo's
combining
like,
them, though, so it gets a little murky in that way. But anyways.
Yeah, don't try to run the campaign based off of just what we said on this podcast. Read the book first, then do it.
Then listen to the podcast, and then amalgamate the two.
Yeah. Listen to it all over again. So they go up to the top of the mountain, which is a terrible and hard trip, to stop this ritual.
Yeah, Taniel and Kapol go up there. But at this point, we definitely couldn't say that Adamat, Sue Smith, Taniel, and Kapol are all in the same party.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? We're combining it.
Why not?
Adamat's not happy about it, but he's up there.
So we're just not going to deal with the thing with Tamas and Charlemagne and
we do it
and
later.
Nixlaus?
Like I said, we do it
We
later.
do this later. We got months. We got months of this.
All right, very well. So then they follow them up to the top to stop the resurgence, to stop the summoning of Kresimir, and they found these monks along the way.
The monks are apparently a fifth type of sorcerer.
Yeah, they really don't get into that at all. But the monks seem to have done very well for themselves, considering we met them before, and they seem kind of like just pretty chill, relatively simple folk.
But they killed a lot of privileged.
half of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you run this fight where the ritual has finished and Kresimir is descending down from the heavens with his upon clouds, with his beautiful blonde hair and all this and that? How do you run that fight? Or do you just make it a cutscene?
Yeah, here's my thing. I'm thinking at this point, we've thrown them a lot of like these objectives, and when they get there, it's like they don't quite meet the goal that they set out to do. They kind of they fail in a way that propels them forward more. But
well,
yeah.
To be fair, the DM, once again, this DM, he poses as a monk and betrays the party and leads them straight up to Julene. And so Taniel has to watch the summoning right there happen, and he ends up getting saved by Kapol.
He's actually not even right there. He's like 6 miles away.
Oh, that's right. He's like, no, you're right.
Ridiculous.
He's like a mile and a half or 2 miles away.
6 miles.
Yeah, 6 miles.
I read it yesterday.
I read it earlier today.
Oh my, yeah, that's crazy.
I read that and I was like, there's no way. Sorry, Brian. In my head canon, that's 1 mile max.
Well, I mean, he talks about how it's a great effort for him, and he almost passes out.
All right. Anyway,
all right,
it's 6 miles
hold
away.
On. What I was gonna say was, now that we're gonna do it again, they're gonna go and they're gonna fail again.
Yeah, so they fail. Kresimir comes back because they're 6 miles away.
I was gonna say, like, you gotta throw this party a bone at some point. Like, they keep kind of failing, but actually, kind of the next arc we kind of get one. So
Taniel shoots the god. The mountain collapses, and the next we know, everyone is back in Adro, injured, recovering from their wounds.
But you're a D&D party, so you don't mind when mountains collapse on you. You got adventuring to do.
Yeah, that's a total, D&D ending. There is, the evil people they've got their ritual to summon back the god, and they do it, and then you have to fight the god, and so make it more protracted in your D&D session. Actually fight the god.
Oh, totally.
Don't be 6 miles away. Be right there. Fight the god, and the mountain can still blow up, and you can still survive. You can do like a really cool escape skill check scenario.
Yeah, and then the Charlemagne arc is done later.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably find a place to slot it in before those events, maybe. But either way, we should talk about it because that is actually one of the more satisfying moments.
Yeah, the party figures out who the traitor is amongst Tamas's goons. And so they go and confront the traitor, who happens to be the leader of the Pope, essentially. Happens to be the Pope of
I think
the
he's
area.
more like a
cardinal?
Yeah, like he's way up there, though. For sure.
Yeah. He's a very powerful cardinal, very influential person. And they go and attack his manor.
Yeah. Which, he knows you're coming.
So you bring your army, he brings his.
And the objective really is, at first, to just stop him from escaping. Because we know, like, that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to run off.
But how do you fight him? If he doesn't ever come out of cover, and he is a master swordsman in melee, how do you go and extract him from his cover?
Well, maybe the party figures something out. And maybe they can't really find a way to be successful in that. And that's when Tamas does his thing. Like, well, go talk to him. Or really, Charlemagne offers.
Right. So, yeah, the turn here comes because they don't know that Tamas has had surgery to remove that gold from his body.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that art because we haven't.
If you put gold in a powder mage's body, they can't use their powder magery. And so he has it removed. They don't know, and that's why they offer to talk to him. And then because they think whenever he steps inside, they can just turn on him real quick and start killing him. They have muskets and stuff on them, but he just turns it on, and that's how the combat kind of starts, which is a DM move, right?
Yeah, I would probably run it very differently in a
Yeah,
sense.
you would have to if you're given the character's agency. Yeah. But if you want to be Tamas as the DM, you can just roll up there and have your moment. And
very true. I mean, there's plenty of fighting.
Them involved.
There's plenty of fighting to be had after Tamas does his big bullet storm thing.
Tamis does his bullet storm, and Charlemagne makes a break for it. And the party is in a position to intercept Charlemagne as he runs to his carriage. The party does so, and turns out Charlemagne is a master swordsman, the greatest swordsman in the Nine.
Yeah, that's no mystery in the book, though, because they mention it every time they mention Charlemagne. Or anytime
Yeah,
Charlemagne
like-
is in a room with someone, he's like, I should call you out for that. Did you know I'm a really good duelist? Or, actually, he doesn't say that. He does talk about calling people out.
But he puts off that vibe like
Yeah.
crazy, though.
And it's explicitly stated all the time, I think, just by Brian McClellan. Brian McClellan.
Yeah, you know. Blah, 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 blah.
by the author that Charlemagne is like the best duelist in the whole country.
God, I love that his name is Charlemagne. He is this archdiocese, and his name sounds like charlatan. And I mean, that's what he is. He is a charlatan, right?
He's certainly not a very pious man.
I love the idea that this, like, Battlemaster sword fighter, maybe even something like a blade singer or something like that,
Ooh,
is like
blade
fleeing,
singer.
and the like inquisitive rogue takes out his cane sword and he's just like, no, I won't let you. And he's
That's
like,
a D&D moment right there.
I get one attack per turn, and because I'm an inquisitive, he would be able to use a sneak attack. He's like, and you have high AC and you get 3 attacks per turn and maneuvers and stuff like that. So I'll see what I can do.
And he does just enough.
A beautiful heroic moment for him.
Yep, but don't worry, the rest of the party either comes in time or is there from the beginning, who knows. But this time, they finally do what they set out to do. They kill Charlemagne.
All right. And now the campaign is, this part of the campaign's done. And we'll talk more next time about the second book, obviously. The arc that we kind of skipped here is that Adamat's family has been taken hostage.
We skipped that, and so harken back to what you said at the beginning, is like there's no way we're going to be able to cover everything in this, so don't worry. We hardly touched on probably the best POV, which is Tamis's.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot that goes on with him that is just less directly relatable to this kind of D&D campaign format.
All right. And so I think you both already said yours, but let's reiterate your most D&D moments of the book.
The fight at the university, where the DM gets to play all these people, including his own guy that he knows is going to get sacrificed to the wolves here, and he gets to do all these cool things in front of the party. I especially love the idea of the DM playing Julene and just like viciously flinging sorcery about this university and destroying everything that he can.
And the party is like, chill.
Yeah, exactly. The party's like, whoa!
Escalation of force.
They're like going meta, and they're just like, whoa, Ryan, why are you playing Julene like this, dude? This is not what we agreed. And then that's when a player immediately goes, oh, and they figure it out. They're like, the DM's playing us. The DM is playing us, guys. Julene is a bad guy.
I knew it. I knew. You know there's going to be some player who'd be like, I don't like her.
That's true. What about you, Nate?
Mine was the Taniel being sent to kill his best friend, Bo, which is, totally the DM being like, all right, let's work that backstory in here, or how you introduce a new player character to the table.
Very good.
Childhood friend.
I think mine is also going to be a DM's heavy use and bending of a player's backstory, where poor Adamat has all of these kids. Imagine you're just writing your backstory and you're having a grand old time. I used to be in the army and I used to be a cop, and now I had this failed business, but it's whatever. Lovely wife and 7 kids. And you're like, all right, and everything's kind of like good in my life. And the DM's like, great, I'm going to do something to your kids. And also, your best friend is possibly trying to kill you, Ricard Tumblar.
There is no one in more danger in D&D than a player character's family.
Yeah, and I just was like, yep, that's my moment, as just from the DM. If you're making like a bulleted list of all your NPCs outside of your backstory, you're doing me a favor, because I'm just going to highlight them and start writing plans on what to do with them. I appreciate it. And I hope you do too. But
This is the second time now when we recorded Willow. Ryan specifically said, like, if you make kids and you put them on the table, I'm going after them. That's just the way Ryan rolls.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're great story drivers.
And the story that I want to tell.
Well, if you want the opportunity to save your kids and be the hero, I got to put them in danger first.
Yeah, that's true.
But that will...
Leave my family alone.
So that will bring us to the end of our review of Promise of Blood and our translation into D&D.
Please do yourself a favor and read this series. It is a wild ride from cover to cover, and
Do it.
This isn't even the best book. I think we all have the same opinion on which book is the best, but we'll cover that when we get to the other books.
And it's so easy to just slip into this world. It's like it. I call it like simple, like themes and concepts just done really well.
So leave a like.
A comment.
Subscribe? Are we doing that now?
I mean, yeah, if you're listening to it on YouTube, subscribe. I think you could subscribe on Spotify and stuff too. So yeah.
Press whichever button is required of you.
I didn't mean subscribe is the word. I meant, are we doing another one of those things where you say one thing, Ryan says something, and then I say a third?
Nah. It will, especially since you like puttered around it. Now I won't now.
We would love it if you supported us. We're trying to grow our brand in our community, so every little bit does help.
I'm trying to eat every day too.
Trying to eat every day. Well, ma'am,
We quit our jobs for this. This is all we have. Please press the buttons.
We need you guys.
Additionally, we are on Fiverr, and we do have some services on there should you need some creative assistance in your DMing or player careers with Dungeons & Dragons. And occasionally we're on Twitch, where I'll be streaming map making.
And next time on Book Talk, we're going to be continuing the saga of Powder Mage. We will be reading the second book in the trilogy, The Crimson Campaign. Come back for that episode as well while we continue. That's definitely my favorite book. I don't mind spoiling that right now, so I'm very excited to talk about it.
Same. Love them all. All right. Thanks so much for listening, y'all.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Privileges.
It's my privilege to get the privileged belongings.
Privileges. That's not it. But privileges.
What is the privilege? That's a sentence.